Hello and welcome to the Patient First podcast. I, of course, am your host, Dr. Bryan Laskin, where I am really excited to increase the influence of today's engaged dentist. Today, we're going to talk about one of the words that I think is viewed as evil in dentistry, and maybe a dirty word that shouldn't be talked about. And I think that because it's viewed this way as a taboo that we shouldn't talk about, that it's hurting a lot of practices. And I think it's not discussed nearly enough in dentistry. And I think as the weeks have gone by in this year, that it's becoming blatantly clear that it's a problem in the industry that we need to directly address. We need to finally lift the veil behind the curtain of this sort of enigma within our practices and really get after it. And it is the key to any business success. But in dentistry, it's very overlooked. And I think it's viewed as something that is a bad word to discuss. And it, of course, is profit. Now, if you look in the dictionary, and I put this up, two different versions of profit, Profit versus Prophet, because I think that in general, in society at large, people make jokes about how one's positive and one's negative, right? And I think that has been amplified in healthcare and definitely in dentistry. Obviously, we can't just be going after profits, but let's face it, if we were just going after profits, we'd probably be in different business. We are here to put patients first, and I think that those things are aligned personally. That's why I wrote the book, The Patient First Manifesto, right? I think that it is the best way to increase your profitability is actually putting patients first. That's what the whole book is about. But I think that in general, people don't think that profits can coexist in a beneficial environment for both parties, right? I think that's stinking thinking. I think the best way to make more profits is to deliver massive amounts of value, right? I think that research, anybody who does huge things and makes massive amounts of profits, they're usually delivering massive value. I just watched a discussion where they were asking somebody about Elon Musk. Should somebody have $300 billion? Well, I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know that the guy has done some tremendous things and added a tremendous amount of value to humanity, right? Now, that's not true of everybody that has, you could make the argument that some other people in charge of some large technology companies haven't been as beneficial to society. But I think that in general, profitability and adding value are linked. And I think that that is true in our practices. And it's time for us to actually talk about profitability. Because we're in a time where, let's face it, profits are much harder to come by. And I know that drum gets beaten quite a bit, but it's true. Wages are going crazy. Reimbursements are going down. Inflation is rising, and it's not like our dental reimbursements are going to keep up with that, right? So as an industry, profits are under pressure, massive pressure. And so it's time to look at it. And I think it's a very difficult thing to do, not just in dentistry, but in society in general, because the business person who actually looks at their profits is depicted horribly in our society. My favorite version of this is from the Lego movie, Lord Businessman, voiced by the amazing Will Ferrell, right? He's an ogre who's just like a heartless, profit-seeking monster, but he's not alone. I mean, the reason why the Lego movie had Lord Businessman as the antagonist is because it's very common in our society to view people that look at profits as negative in some way. If you look at the movies Elf, Ebenezer Scrooge, Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life, these are all examples of bad business people, and those are just the Christmas movies. Now, I'm really feel strongly about this because of a couple things that have happened in my career. So first off, when I purchased my second practice, I bought the practice from a wonderful dentist who was an amazing clinician. Really taught me a bunch about occlusion and cosmetics, and was a pure craftsman, and had a beautiful office that I was excited to move from my first office, which was basically a little dump of 800 square feet, into this beautiful office in a medical building. And he did fantastic dentistry. It was a beautiful office, but as I quickly learned, not profitable. And attaching that business to my existing office was like putting an anchor on my rocket ship. And it was questionable whether or not we were profitable because of how that transaction happened. And so I saw money coming in, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. We're getting more money than before. And then I saw all the money going out, and my bank account just shrank to nothing. And while we were profitable, it had some very lean months that was very shocking, and I did not anticipate happening. And I think that there's a lot of practices right now that are having months like that. And it's time to really look at profitability in your practice and make sure that you're doing the things that make sense for your business. Because I think that if you are not profitable, it leads to some very bad decisions. I think operating out of fear in a business is a very dangerous, bad place to be. We don't put patients first if we're worried about profitability, and we can make some bad decisions, which I fortunately I've never been there in my practice that we had to compromise on quality, but I can understand how it could happen. And so before that would happen to anybody, I think it's a very important thing in dentistry to destigmatize profitability. And if you're questioning about your profitability, certainly get the help that you need to figure it out, because dentistry is a relatively easy business to run profitably, but it's not talked about enough, I believe, even among consultants. I've worked with consultants for years, and nobody really digs into how profitable you are. I met quarterly with my accountant, and they talk about profitability, but sometimes it can be a deduction on a building or massive asset purchase that makes it look like you're profitable when your bank account's very thin. And it always felt to me that money went in, money went out, and it was really, really hard to understand how much am I actually making this year. And then you get this massive tax bill that you're not looking for because on paper you made money, right? I'm sure most dentists or business owners who are listening today can that resonates probably with them. It can be incredibly stressful, but it can work out in dentistry for years because we traditionally have had very profitable businesses, but I think that's changing. And when I sold my practice about 3 years ago, my practices, embarrassingly, I didn't know how profitable we were. I mean, it worked out because we were wildly profitable, and I'll talk more about how I handled the expenses and the production to ensure our profitability, but I really didn't know what the number was. And so for a long time, I've talked with people that I wish I could push a button and see two things. One, how much is my practice worth, right? What is the value of my practice? You shouldn't have to pay somebody $5,000 to figure that out, right? And I did a study on how to value dental practices, which I'm proud of. And I wanted to be able to push a button and see what the value of my practice was today. And also see how profitable have I been this month, right? And it hasn't existed. And so it's kind of been banging in the back of my brain for a while, because I think those are two very, very, very important statistics for any business to have. What's the value? How profitable are you? And it's been way too complicated to get that information. So we've corrected it. We've created a product called Abundance. It's spelled ABUDENTS, Abundance, kind of a play on words. And that's the first thing. When you log in and you click the button, you see how valuable your practice is, you see your profitability, and you see your team performance. Of course, you can dig in and see all the metrics that you want from your QuickBooks, from your practice management software. And then we even have Abundance University, which is automated training. So if you have a metric that goes south, we send that employee, that team member, or if it's you, directly to automated training. It's the very first self-service metrics dashboard combined with consulting tool that I'm aware of in dentistry, and I'm really proud of it. And importantly, it shows you clearly how profitable you are, which I think is a big boon for practices. And it's not taboo. It needs to be talked about because profitability is key to your practice. And I think strongly, again, that the way to be profitable is to do the best for your patients, to create massive amounts of value for your team members, for your patients, but you also do need to track it, right? I mean, you need to, there has to be a scoreboard because the numbers tell the story of how you're doing. How well are you putting patients first, and how well are you taking care of your team? Those numbers tell that story. And so to find out more, if you're interested in getting a demo of Abundance, go to abudents.com. And thank you very much for listening. And of course, I look forward to talking more with you on an upcoming Patient First podcast.